Snot or Snagbrack. A silver penny for a magpie. Ireland, 1827. His given name was Tommin, but for as long as he could remember, his granny had called him nothing but Magpie. Indeed, it was the only word she had spoken since she'd been stricken with apoplexy 13 years before, when Tommin was just 3 years old. That was the spring of the floods and the fever, the year he lost his mother, the year his father ran off without saying goodbye. On this bright May morning, Granny eyed him from her chair beside the fire and accused him without opening her mouth. She always knew when he'd been up to mischief. She knew without making him turn out his pockets, without forcing him to confess aloud. Nothing in the world made him feel worse. He wondered if other 16-year-old boys melted so quickly under the gaze of their grandmothers. Perhaps it was an affliction only he knew. Perhaps it was because she was both father and mother to him, and the only one who loved him without restraint. Tommin dropped a silver coin onto the kitchen table. To his ears, it resounded with an almighty clank, like the gates of hell slamming. Shame made his face hot as a demon's cook fire. Yet as much as he regretted stealing the coin, he loved the thing. It sparkled at him, wooing him, stirring his heart more than any girl ever had. "Magpie," Granny said, in such a way that he knew she pitied him. "Landlord will be making his rounds today," Tommin said. The old woman grunted. She patted her pocket, and the coins already inside clinked together. Tommin hadn't forgotten he'd given her the rent money days before, when he'd brought home his honourably earned wages, and neither had she. Toward next month's rent, then. Granny clucked her tongue. It was hopeless, his attempt at turning ill-gotten gain into innocent provision. He was no alchemist. Trying to swallow his guilt, he ran one finger over the image stamped into the coin. A shiver of pleasure ran up his arm and spread throughout his body. This, he knew, was not normal, but that was all he knew of it. Not why, not how long, not who had cursed him with the urge to steal. A compulsion that tortured him and then rewarded him for his crimes with immeasurable bliss. Nothing satisfied him like stolen silver and gold. Only the crafting of shoes could quiet his greed, and that only for a short time. Granny leaned forward to stir the pot of porridge hanging from its hook above the fire. The town clock struck 7 as she motioned for him to bring his bowl. He had work to do, honest work, and Granny was not one to tolerate lateness or laziness. Her silent reprimands stung every bit as much as any shouted rebuke. Tommin spooned his breakfast into his mouth and swallowed it without tasting it. It could have been wet sawdust, and he would not have cared, still buoyed by the terrible pleasure of his recent theft. Saints above, he hated himself. Heaven knew he did try to be good, for Granny's sake even more than his own. No earthly sum could equal what he owed Granny for her years of raising him so lovingly. And now that she was old and weak, it was his turn to care for her and to provide for them both through his work with the shoemaker. The truth was, he had 2 lives, and one of them could not go on, unless he fancied swinging from the gallows or rotting in prison. Every theft carried him closer to his doom. But when the lust for treasure and the agony of wanting gripped him, he was too often helpless to resist. There was no pretty word for it. Stealing, thievery, robbery, burgling. Once a year when he was small, then twice, every full moon by the time he turned 10, and now as often as once or twice a week. As he grew, the hunger inside him grew, a dark worm demanding to be fed treasure by his hand, gnawing at his resolve to be good. It wasn't that he hadn't tried to cast off whatever curse or demon plagued him. 100 times he'd prayed until his knees grew numb.